Hello everyone. Today I will be giving a short speech on nuclear power. Radiation. This word holds a negative connotation to it. Without a doubt, radiation can be quite dangerous. However, when used properly, it has several applications that can benefit humanity in a positive way. We can use the nature of radioactive elements to generate electricity. This is one application. It is called nuclear power. However, it does have one drawback. Let me first illustrate the process of nuclear power and then I'll elaborate on this drawback. In order for us to begin nuclear power, we must obtain some sort of radioactive element. The most commonly used radioactive element is uranium. To obtain uranium, we usually mine it from the ground. Most of the uranium in the United States is exported or is imported from other countries such as Russia, Canada, Australia, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. After we have this uranium ore, we must enrich it. Uranium naturally comes in 1% of the total ore. We need 3 to 5% in order for nuclear power to be possible. This isn't nearly enough for nuclear weapons, but it is enough for nuclear power. After the uranium is enriched, it is put in the form of pellets that are then placed in large rods that are then submerged into a pool of water. Here, electricity can now be generated through nuclear fission. Let me explain that term. Nuclear fission is when an atom breaks down, releasing energy. In this instance, a stray neutron impacts a uranium atom, causing it to become extremely unstable and break down. When a uranium atom breaks down, it breaks down into smaller elements and into a few stray neutrons. These stray neutrons then impact other uranium atoms that break down as well and release more stray neutrons. This becomes a chain reaction where one breakdown of a uranium atom triggers another one. Every time an uranium atom breaks down, energy is released in the form of heat. Through the chain reaction, enough heat is generated that the water gets extremely hot. Now, two things can happen. In a boiling water reactor, the water that becomes extremely hot begins to boil, creating steam. This steam then travels along a tube towards a turbine, and this steam turns this turbine. The steam is then cooled back down and condenses back into liquid water and is essentially recycled and taken back into the nuclear reactor. In the second instance, in a pressurized water nuclear reactor, there's two containers. There's one with the uranium rod and the second one with just water. In the first container, the water becomes extremely hot but is unable to boil. It is unable to boil because the water is highly pressurized. This high pressure does not allow the water to boil. Instead, the hot water travels along a tube into the second container. And then through the tubing, the hot water transfers its heat into the second container. Enough heat is eventually transferred that the water in the second container begins to boil, turning into steam. This steam then, like in a boiling water reactor, travels along the tube towards a turbine, and then it spins this turbine, and afterwards the steam is cooled down and condenses back into liquid water and is once again essentially recycled by being taken back to the second container of water. It was the spinning of the turbines that generated electricity. It can generate a lot of electricity actually, but there is one drawback. Through this whole process, nuclear waste was created. Radioactive waste. Radioactive waste is extremely dangerous because it is radioactive. It's dangerous because radiation increases the chances of cancers by a lot. And because of this, we must dispose of it carefully. Except we don't really dispose of it. Instead, we store it. We usually store it above ground or underground in large containers. None of these methods are exactly safe, but they are the best choices we have, especially storing it underground. Now let's review. We can use radiation in order to generate electricity. To do this, we obtain some sort of radioactive element, most commonly uranium ore. We then enrich this uranium ore, then place the enriched uranium into pellets into large rods that are submerged into water. Then, through nuclear fission, heat is generated, heating up the water, and in both a boiling water nuclear reactor and a pressurized water reactor, this heat eventually turns water into steam that turns turbines generating electricity. However, through this whole process, nuclear waste was created, which is extremely dangerous, and which is why we must dispose of it. We don't really have a foolproof method of disposing of it. Instead, we store it above ground or underground. We can use something as bad as radiation to create electricity and benefit humankind, but it still has its drawbacks. I hope you enjoyed my short speech and have a good day. Goodbye.